hand it off to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. My name is Catherine. I work for the Foundation for Individual Rights in Education, otherwise known as FIRE. We are a nonpartisan, nonprofit group with a very narrow mission, and that is to protect First Amendment free speech rights on college campuses, as well as due process rights as well. And I have worked with some of you in helping get your schools back on track, should we say. One of the things that FIRE is most concerned about are speech codes. Now, what is a speech code? Obviously, universities do not have a place in their student handbook that says, this is the censorship part. Here we're going to list everything that you can't do. Instead, they have rules that appear to be neutral, but in fact really have a negative effect on your right to express yourself. The most notorious is the so-called free speech zone, which is Orwellian in that it has nothing to do with free speech. These are tiny areas of campus where students are quarantined when they want to express themselves. If schools are really on the ball, they'll make you sign up 3 weeks in advance in order to stand in the out-of-the-way corner to say whatever it is that you're passionate about. The most notorious case we had was at Modesto Junior College in California. Robert Van Tynen, an Army veteran, decided that what he wanted to do was hand out copies of the Constitution on Constitution Day. He lasted about 10 minutes before a security guard came up to him and told him that he could not do this because he was not in the free speech zone, and he needed to go sign up for that. So there is somebody with literally the First Amendment in his hand, sort of saying, but it says here that I can speak freely in this open area, and the security guard saying, oh, well, that's just the Constitution. What I have backing me up are school rules, so get with the program. He came to us, and we actually filed, supported him in filing a lawsuit, and not surprisingly, the school backed down. Changed the policy and got to pay attorney's fees and damages as well. So that was very satisfying. But the problem with the sort of administrative bloat is that these administrators have to do something all day. And what they do is they write these rules. And not only does that affect your ability to express yourself and to tell other people what you're passionate about, but it also sends a message to the entire campus that censorship is okay, and that dealing with difficult ideas, dealing with things you don't want to hear, that an acceptable way to get around that is to insist that the person with a different point of view be quiet. And I think there is a strong connection between that and the other phenomena that we're seeing. So, for instance, the idea of a safe space. Now, safe spaces make perfect sense. I think new is probably a safe space for you when you're a minority as a conservative woman on a college campus. It probably is very empowering to get together with fellow conservatives and discuss, policy and your life on campus. That's freedom of association. That is something that is very important to society. The problem is when groups of students try and impose the rules and mores of their safe space on everybody else. And so we at FIRE say that a safe space is an important shield. College can be overwhelming, particularly the first couple of years. You want to find your peeps. And A safe space, if you want to call it that, is a great way of doing that. But it cannot be a sword. You cannot take your views of the world and try and enforce them on other people and announce that the people that disagree with you are somehow dangerous or making you feel insecure and therefore they should be silenced. Trigger warnings also sort of can go both ways. A trigger warning that is offered by a professor for pedagogical reasons makes perfect sense. There is some material out there that students should be able to prepare themselves to see. I remember many years ago watching a film about growing up in post-war Germany. And in that film, they had raw footage of the liberation of Auschwitz. That is something I will never forget. Would it have been nice to have been warned? Yeah. I remember it decades later. It made a terrific impact on me. So maybe that's what the teacher, was after. But that was her decision. Where trigger warnings become a problem is when students come and say, I don't want to confront this. So I don't want to confront sexism, or I don't want to confront racism. So tell me when it's coming so that I know when to skip class, or I know to ask for an alternative assignment. And that, frankly, guts the purpose of a university. The purpose of a university is to go and be challenged, to confront ideas that you haven't heard before, that you might think are disturbing, but to do it, if I may, in a safe space of the classroom with your peers and with a professor who knows the material and has been trained on how to teach it. So, and the other problem with a mandatory trigger warning is that it has a terrible effect on academic freedom, because then it is telling a professor, this is the way you have to teach the material, not the way you think would be most effective from a pedagogical point of view, but the way we as administrators or we as students think it's best for you to do it. And so that, I think, is also deeply disturbing. So trigger warnings at the discretion of the professor, sure, why not? Trigger warnings as some sort of mandatory diktat from on high, no. And if any of you come across that, as far as I know, no university has adopted a mandatory trigger warning policy, although some have discussed it. But please, if you ever hear of it, if it happens at your school, we're at www.thefire.org, and we would love to hear about that or any other time that your voice is stifled. We are nonpartisan. What you're passionate about is for you to decide. We are here to make sure that your voice can be heard loud and clear. So, thank you.